just to let you all know, someone's going to be stopping by and dropping off some herbs for me. We'll just come in and leave, so you know. Today's class is on the Cittavagga. I explained what Citta means earlier. The whole Dhammapada is a progression of concise Dhamma teachings that build on each other. So we started with the Makavagga, which teaches that mind governs all. What that means is that the quality of our mind will determine our life experience, which makes sense, doesn't it? You just think a little bit about that. The Apamavagga, which was our last class, now takes that to the deeper into the Dhamma and teaches that it is a type of mindfulness called right or refined mindfulness, and that's a mindfulness that is governed by the Eightfold Path. So what that little chapter teaches is that as wise Dhamma practitioners, we develop the Eightfold Path as our point of understanding what's occurring in this moment. In other words, as things arise and pass away, we understand it through that clear and well-concentrated lens of the Eightfold Path. The Cittavagga refines that an even deeper level and teaches us that through Dhamma practice, through the heartwood of the Dhamma, resting in Jhana, an ever increasing level of concentration, now framed by the Eightfold Path, we're able to do the single most significant action that we can take, which is wise restraint. And of course, we understand that a mind rooted in ignorance is constantly grasping after any object, event, view, or idea that will distract one from recognizing that ignorance. You can say that that's the purpose of a world rooted in ignorance, is to continue ignorance. The Buddha recognized that upon his awakening, and that's why he taught the essence of dukkha is ignorance. The essence of liberation and peace and freedom is wisdom of the nature of ignorance. The Cittavagga. The Cittavagga. The Cittavagga, this is the introduction. The Cittavagga reveals the suffering that follows from a mind rooted in ignorance of Four Noble Truths and the peaceful mind developed through the Eightfold Path. The Eightfold Path is always referred to as the heartwood of the Dhamma. It is through wise restraint that an ever-grasping, continually distracted ego personality is subdued, and the disciple gains the ability to think what they want, whenever they want, and does not think what is unskillful. That quote continues, with this practitioner has severed craving and has brought an end to suffering and stress. Through right meditation, meaning jhana meditation, the disciple develops refined mindfulness, resting on ever-deepening jhana. A Cittavagga, a well-restrained mind. The Buddha's words, the mind, fickle, unsteady, difficult to restrain. Even so, the disciple straightens the mind like a skillful fletcher straightens an arrow. It's such a powerful visual, isn't it, to what we're actually doing. Excuse me for a moment. Most every spiritual discipline, New Age philosophy ever came about did just the opposite of this. It wasn't about practice and restraint. It was about grasping after yet another conceptual application of who and what I was, whether it's in a physical plane or in a heavenly plane. There was no restraint. It was always grasping after. And even something as, I don't want to reference a religion directly. Even some of the tenets of religion point us towards not something that's practically usable in my life right here and right now, but an aspect that I can develop in some future incarnation. I'm being a little bit cagey, but I don't want to comment directly on any particular religion. This is a game of straightening our minds. That's what the whole point of it is. It's recognizing where our minds are crooked, where they're leading us into continued ignorance, and straightening that mind through a direct path, a straight path. The metaphors really fall into place nicely when you understand how to apply. A mind ruled by Mara is agitated, like a fish out of water, grasping and flopping here and there. Mara is, excuse me. The Buddha uses metaphor often throughout the teachings to make a particular point. And Mara is always metaphor for ignorance and the manifestations of ignorance. Mara is also metaphor for dukkha. Mara is metaphor for any concept that's rooted in ignorance that distracts us away from the truth. Of course, in the magical, mystical applications of modern Buddhism, Mara is seen as a significant and impactful quasi-God that is actually working on us. Some of the translations of the Buddha's own awakening, where he refers to Mara, referring to his own troubled mind prior to his awakening, the modern applications of that give legitimacy to the God/goddess Mara, that there's something real acting there. Of course, when you actually study what the Buddha taught, you realize that that's pure metaphor, because he constantly comes back with saying, avoid any type of speculative, non-physical, even an idea of who or what we might be. And of course, that includes Mara. The mind is difficult to restrain, ever changing, always clinging to objects of desire. That's the most important teachings on impermanence. It's not that the outside world is impermanent, it's that our mind is always changing. And then it's always changing because we haven't built the foundation resting in jhana and resting in reality. There's no substance there to hold it in place. Does that make sense to everyone? So the Dhamma is like the Dhamma is the touchstone that keeps us in reality. It keeps the mind united in the body. And so even the metaphors you use here make perfect sense, don't they? It's a way of staying in reality and not losing our minds to ignorance. The highest knowledge is restraint. Think about that one line. This is a human being who developed the profound understanding of what's actually occurring. And his statement is that the highest knowledge is the knowledge of restraint, to know where to apply it. And as we develop the Dhamma, we understand that's true. It's the restraint at the point of contact, as our life is unfolding, is the only place that the only time frame that we can practice the Dhamma is right here and right now. And so jhana meditation is a way of taking our minds that are stuck in the past or grasping after the future, uniting it into our mind and our body, and then seeing what's occurring from profound right view. That takes restraint, doesn't it? If my mind is always grasping after the next thing, the next idea, or the next poem by my favorite Buddhist teacher, or my favorite Buddhist psychiatrist, I'm always grasping after something, aren't I? Rather than resting in something that a Buddha taught 2,600 years ago that needs no other adaptation, accommodation, or embellishment. In fact, if it is adapted or accommodated or embellished in any way, the entire Dhamma is lost. And we know that. And we know that because of that one line. Because when we're doing that, our minds are no longer restrained. A restrained mind dwells in peace. A grasping mind is subtle, hard to recognize. The wise restrain the mind. A well-restrained mind brings lasting happiness. Dwelling in distraction, the mind, disjoined from the body, wanders aimlessly. Wanders aimlessly where? From one ignorant attachment to another. And so then all of life, Tim and I had a really interesting conversation about the use of modern social media and how it's constantly distracting us. And yet there's so many people that live their whole lives looking at a screen rather than looking at their own minds. What a waste of a life, isn't it? What a waste of a life. The body, disjointed from the body, the mind wanders aimlessly. When subdued, the mind is freed from the bonds of Mara. Wisdom is never developed in a mind that is ignorant of the heartwood, meaning the Eightfold Path. That mind is listless, not established in jhana. This is a line from the Loka Sutta, remember, repeated here. Where there is desire, there is fear. There is no fear in an awakened one free of greed and aversion, free of gaining and losing. The wise understand the impermanence of form while fortifying the mind to abandon Mara. Established in right view, Mara conquered, now free of worldly entanglements. In no time, this body is dust, mindless, lifeless, a useless stump. Notice the Buddha is not giving any value at all to that death. He's not saying the body is lifeless, but guess what? There's a whole wonderful world of Buddha's heaven after that. That's pure speculation, isn't it? The Buddha is pointing us out that if you get it done now, good, but if you don't, you end up with just a lifeless stump. An unrestrained mind brings greater harm than any enemy or hater. An unrestrained mind, not to get into it, but look at what's going on in the world today. It's all an example, not all of it. What we're noticing is an example of unrestrained minds. And everyone, I'm not just talking about the rioters or peaceful protesters. I'm talking about all of the rhetoric that we're exposed to today. It's all an aspect of unrestrained minds. The reason why we don't become entangled in all of that is because we've restrained our mind, isn't it? We don't get caught up in it. We recognize it. No one and no thing brings greater benefit than a mind well restrained. No one or no thing brings greater benefit than a mind well restrained. Tonight's sutra, tonight's chapter. So now we're looking at, in this progression of the first three chapters, of understanding that the mind governs all, and that it's refined mindfulness that we develop, and we develop that refined mindfulness through wise restraint. And as you'll see, the rest of these chapters show us directly and clearly how to restrain a mind. It's not difficult, it's not painful. There's no reason not to do it, except a mind rooted in ignorance is constantly grasping after anything that won't do that. Tim, you had a comment or a question?
Yeah, you said something when you were talking about Jhana. You said something that in Jhana, when we're in Jhana, I'd like you to say it again because I want to write it down. We do something and then we apply restraint. Do you remember? I should have stopped you when you said it.
Well, we develop jhana, and it's from that well-concentrated mind that we're able to practice restraint. And doesn't that make sense, though? That if my mind is still distracted, keep always jumping from here to there, there is no restraint. There's no possibility for restraint. That's why jhana meditation, this only meditation the Buddha ever taught, is for that one reason. He taught meditation for an entirely practical reason. Not for visions, not to find ourselves in disincarnate planes or realms, but for that one single purpose, to deepen concentration so that we can practice restraint. Was that what you were referring to, Tim?
Yeah. Yes, it was. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go online, and we're going to start with Jane because she was the first one to sign on tonight. How are you, Jane?
Hi, John. I'm just grateful good to hear you. I'm grateful for the peace I found in the Dhamma. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Me too. Josh, how are you? Sarah has to wait because she was late. How you doing, Josh?
Hi, John. Hi, everybody. I think I'm beginning to understand that
Finally.
for every waking moment, my mind, I think it said somewhere else in another sutta about the horse that is untamed. And I think that's a little bit like the unrestrained horse. And that every single moment, my mind wants to run off to somewhere else, ignorance or whatever. And I guess you have to get into a state of permanent jhana to have a restrained mind, as I understand it. But
yes, but there's gradations of that. It's not an absolute.
Well, it seems like uh, uh, left to my own devices on every moment of contact that I have, my mind will start getting into clinging and aversion and all the things that the Buddha tries to teach us to not do. So, but I do know that more and more when I'm troubled or something's going on, if I just start paying attention to my breathing, it's amazing how well that works.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's jhana practice. You know, so you are deepening jhana, and when you are, this is what I meant by gradation. So right now you are practicing wise restraint. It's just not the path isn't complete yet. That's all it means. But the fact that you are able to do it shows that it works for you. And I would bet you're finding some benefit in that.
I am.
Yeah. So it is worth the price of admission.
Thank you, John.
How are you, Sarah? Good to see you. I didn't mean to knock you there. You weren't late. You were right on time.
You didn't knock me at all. I'm just trying to get used to this. I just upgraded my app. That's all.
Ah, is it working okay?
Well, I couldn't. The first person that you talked to, I couldn't see her.
Yeah, Jane wasn't on screen.
Okay. All right. So it's not my app.
How about the audio? Is that better now?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, good.
So I actually am very encouraged by this Dhamma study because I've experienced little pieces of this in areas of addiction, and it was when I flipped from one of the things that I read was that the one who delights in mindfulness and is fearful of mindlessness will not lose the way, and they're close to release. And it was like a light bulb went on, because when I flipped from seeing how much I could get away with, and then it kind of moved into what not how much I can get away with, but really just avoiding those things completely, I still was struggling. But when I actually flipped it all the way to not just setting aside what isn't good for me or what doesn't feel good, but flipped it to focusing and turning my attention towards what things make me feel good, as far as healthy and whole, then it was those things didn't have any attraction to me anymore. They weren't alluring to me, and it made me hopeful that maybe that same shift will take place in my Dhamma, in my meditation practice, because I have struggled to actually make it the meditation of practice. I was thinking tonight that it's not that I'm not doing it. It's just that it's not a practice, it's not regular for me, and that at least by my coming into the Dhamma studies, I'm being brainwashed, and I'm at least doing that once a week. But I don't know. It just made me hopeful.
Thank you, Sarah. You said so much there. It's called the Dhamma practice for that reason. It has to be practiced, and the more you practice it, the more benefit there is. And we do what we can when we can. So you've made some. I've known Sarah for a couple of years now. You've made some remarkable changes in your life and the way you see yourself in relation to that life. You're experiencing the benefit of restraint, but most important is you recognize that. You recognize the difference in going from recovering from addiction in a still grasping after the addiction way, to really incorporating restraint and understanding the benefits of that. So you go from I can't wait for my next drink, where's it coming from, or my next drug, to understanding I've gained control of my mind. And that's the essence of whether you're in recovering from drugs, alcohol, et cetera, all the other things, or simply the compulsion for the next thought, the next ignorant thought. And that's where restraint is applied. Thank you for sharing that tonight, Sarah.
Yeah.
Give me a call. So we haven't talked in a while. So give me a call this week, maybe.
Thank you.
Bram, how are you?
I'm good. I really like this first metaphor that you used, the fletcher.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've ever seen how a fletcher works, but it's a perfect metaphor for Jhana. A fletcher, looks for a block of straight wood, the length of the arrow, and he starts splitting into smaller and smaller pieces.
Yeah.
Till he gets something and he keeps following the grain of the wood. And then he gets to the point where he has a rod that's about the thickness of a wants. And then he starts taking like a smaller knife and he starts shaving it down and looking and shaving it down and looking and shaving it down and twirling. And then when he gets it closer, then he takes just a scraper and he starts shaving off little bits of wood here and there, and he keeps trying and looking and trying and shaving. And it's this beautiful repetitive perfectionism that you get, and you end up with an arrow with a tool that, when it's good, it goes where you point it.
Just like a mile.
Just like you want. And it's just a perfect metaphor.
It really is. Have you made an arrow?
I've never made it.
No.
I'm trying to make chopsticks, and that's hard enough. But the process is the same.
Yeah. Thank you, Ron. Brett, how are you? Where are you? Let me find you.
Good to be here. I like teaching restraint. It's something that I'm kind of working on now and practicing, and it's falling into the area of and not trying to grasp onto another thought, and then when you get to a point of the emptiness, then you kind of the place where it's, is this it? Is this all there is? And yes, that's true. That it is all there is. So it's like you have to, when I'm there, I have to just return my breath and just trying to get my thinking a little more, I wouldn't say positive, but I know that's the letting go of fabrications and just that's where that will come in. And so yeah, working on that and meditating, and it's all working. So
Thank you, Ray. Yeah, it is all working. That to a mind rooted in ignorance of Four Noble Truths, just the word restraint is not something it wants to be involved in. And so it can seem, excuse me, as we start developing the Dhamma and start actually practicing restraint, life can at times seem very dull, even excruciatingly dull, because we don't have the distraction we're used to. But again, that's where the heartwood of the Dhamma comes from, and the importance of recognizing the benefit of even that. Even a mind that's bored is a mind that in that moment needs distraction. That's why that's where boredom comes from. I can't stand it right now. I need something to distract me. As we start developing wise restraint, we appreciate boredom. We appreciate the peace of nothing going on. And yeah.
Which I did for years, just sitting in my mind, so I didn't have to.
Yep. Yep, and in a real way, that's also the essence of addiction, isn't it? Whether it's objects, events, views, or ideas that we're always chasing, or something specific like a bottle of vodka. It's all the same thing in relation to ignorance. The bottle of vodka might be more immediately damaging than the idea, but it's all the same thing. It's all ignorance of Four Noble Truths. And as we practice restraint, like Sarah said, as we practice restraint on something obvious, life gets better. But when we do it to just our thoughts, life gets better, meaning it becomes more peaceful and more understandable. And then when we get past that initial phase of even subtle boredom and really recognize the benefit of Dhamma practice, then each and every moment has meaning. We don't need to be grasping after anything anymore because each and every moment of my life is meaningful now. I don't need any other stimulation. In fact, you get to the point where you are mindful of stimulation and you don't want any of that. You know, that's really wise restraint. You know, the loud noise or the red Ferrari. It no longer grabs your attention. This is just what's occurring. And if you find yourself in the front seat of a red Ferrari, great. And if you don't, you don't. Wait a minute. I'd rather have the Ferrari. David, how are you?
I'm doing well. I found the personal experience is the lesson of right speech.
Yeah.
Very early on, and that's the first thing people gravitate toward. And
Yep.
it's a struggle, because you really are just early on, as Jen pointed out on Saturday, simply exerting willpower.
Yeah.
And as your practice slowly deepens by good effort, right effort, you're not practicing restraint, you're experiencing restraint. And it's no longer a willpower, it just starts existing in how you go about your day.
Yeah.
And your thoughts, words, and deeds, you're very aware of those moments, and you're not catching those moments, you're just experiencing that you're no longer needing to win each moment and needing to speak out in reply to everything that's said, or thoughts even. And that's really when you start noticing the benefits of your practice, that your thoughts are just different.
Yeah.
You're not being snarky in your mind. You're not, having an internal dialogue. And again, that's just, I think, the refined restraint is over a course of your practice.
Yeah.
And it's always being refined.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Well said, David. Thank you. Kevin, how are you tonight?
I'm doing well.
Okay.
Just appreciate those comments on sort of the ease of restraint as one takes to the practice and develops concentration. I like that. I appreciate the use of metaphor, not only in the sutta, but Ram's detail on that. So, thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Tim, how are you tonight?
Good evening, everybody. Yeah, this, when I first started practicing the Dhamma, we felt that restraint was more pragmatic, whereas through the months and months of practicing the Dhamma, I've come to realize that restraint comes from the mindfulness that's developed through Jhana.
Yeah.
And to David's point, it shows up with how we speak, with how we act, the actions we do. The factors of the Eightfold Path, they become apparent based on that restraint. And so the Sutta was just a nice gentle reminder of that wise restraint. And I think we touched on a little bit on Saturday about that too.
Yep.
And I always, again, can't help but notice the subtle implications of the three marks of existence in the Sutta and in the intro, and how when we don't practice wise restraint, and we tend to suffer.
Yeah.
And yeah, I love the metaphors and the reference to the lotus Sutta as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Michael, how are you?
Hi, John. I wrote a bunch of notes all over this place, so I wanted to try to tie them together somehow to make something, and try to run together, so, just bear with me. I really like what David said. And it just makes a lot of sense, and just the way you had said it, David, that mindfulness seems to kind of creep up on you, and before you know it, with enough, time meditating, you know, in the deepening jhana practice, you kind of like the Eightfold Path kind of gets instilled within you, or it's held in mind. It seems to be something that you kind of, it filters your actions, words, thoughts, and deeds, you know, going forward. I kind of like find that occurring now, paying attention to it. So it is something that I think as my jhana practice has gotten, you know, deeper, and I've been able to concentrate more, it does seem like I'm seeing things through that lens of the Eightfold Path, so to say, you know, in the world, and trying to act accordingly, you know, with that. A couple of other things that, you know, I picked up in this line where it says, a grasping mind is subtle, hard to recognize. You don't even know. Sometimes you don't even have the, you're not, you know, like I find myself, I've been there, like not even having the depth of introspection established that I could even recognize, you know, the subtle nature of what we're trying to accomplish here. You know, it's a deep introspective journey to be able to discern, you know, that right view. You know,
yeah.
And
that's true insight. That's,
yeah, it's actually so when you start like picking up those finer points, those subtle things, you realize how deep into your mind, you know, this ignorance that we you know we actually are subject to. We really don't know the depth of it until we are able to go deep into concentration with our meditation, and then find the depth of it, you know, and then discern our actions from that point, you know, from where we can discover it, where it's occurring, the source of it, so to say. That's a lifelong journey, I would imagine. So, in order to for the subtle mind to you know, a grasping mind is subtle, hard to recognize. The concentration developing jhana helps us recognize that, you know, and restraint is obviously something that once we develop that type of vision, so to say, that's when that Eightfold Path is coming into play. So
yeah.
That's the way I kind of interpreted this whole thing here, and I'll just leave it at that. Very good. Thank you.
Wonderfully said, Michael. That a mind rooted in ignorance is compelled to ignore its own ignorance. It's the nature of ignorance. It's the root of the word, isn't it? To ignore. And so there's a mind that is rooted in ignorance can't recognize it unless it has a framework to do it, and that's the Eightfold Path. And again, when you substitute anything for that path or add to it, you lose the path, and so you're only masking ignorance, no matter what it is. And again, it's not a condemnation of people that choose to engage in so-called spiritual or religious practices that will only continue their ignorance. Human beings do it all the time. It's not right or wrong. It's just, you know, to me, it's the same as someone who compulsively has to go bowling on Thursday or they're unhappy. You know, it's the same thing. It's just a mask of what's going on in your life. Thank you. Julia, good to see you. How are you?
Good to see you. Good to see everybody. And thank you everyone for everyone's comments. It's very, you know, kind of enriches the sutta. And thank you, Ron, because I really like that visual. I like visuals. It helps me learn, you know.
Yeah.
I wrote something, so I'll just read what I wrote because I don't know how to say this in a quick way. Wise restraint requires right view and right intention, understanding the wisdom of the Four Noble Truths. This understanding allows us to see the ever-changing environment and not take things personally. From the practice of moral restraint, right speech, right action, and right livelihood, to the direct mental training of right effort and right mindfulness and right concentration. The right concentration is the power of sustaining concentration, which brings the requisite stillness of the mind, unifying the mind with the body. It is this mind dwelling in peaceful equanimity, not dwelling in distractions of clinging and grasping, that is able to restrain and control the mind. So you need the right concentration. You need the whole Eightfold Path
Yeah.
for wise restraint. That's what this sutta kind of made it clear that you need, these are all the components to
Yeah.
actually have wise restraint. And I agree with David, it's a natural thing. It's not something that is kind of an outside force, a willpower thing. It's more something that flourishes and grows within you. And then you're able to use wise restraint. Finally become aware.
It's a beautiful synopsis of the entire path. Really. Thank you. Well, okay, that was. We'll continue with this on tonight's Tuesday. On Saturday, next Tuesday, we're going to take a one-class break from the Dhammapada just for scheduling. I want Jen is going to teach the following Saturday, but I want her to teach the fifth chapter, which would fall next Tuesday. You all follow me? So we're going to have a wonderful class next Tuesday, but it won't be on the Dhammapada. If there's I was talking to Tim and Julie and Michael. I've been working on the Angala Mila Sutta for quite a while, and it's a rather long sutta. If I get it mostly done, I will be teaching that next Tuesday, but if not, if I don't have it complete or nearly complete, we'll teach something else.
So Saturday we're doing the next chapter of Dhammapada, right?
Yes, this Saturday will be chapter 4, and then next Saturday will be chapter 5, and then we'll continue with the Dhammapada from that point. So, and we'll continue. We'll finish our class right now with Metta, Buddha's words on Metta. And again, someone may be stopping in, but that's okay. So again, find your relaxed meditation posture. Gently close your eyes, gently close your mouth, and take a moment to become mindful of your in-breath and your out-breath. And these are the Buddha's words on Metta from the Karaniya Metta Sutta. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties, and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud or demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove. Wishing, in gladness and in safety, may all beings be at ease. Whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short, or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another. Even as a mother protects with her child her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings. Radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will. Whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness, one should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding. By not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into this world. Thank you all for a wonderful class tonight. Peace. See you, Josh. See you, Jane.
Thank you, John.
Thanks, John.
See you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.